In 1987, a Michigan radio DJ wrote a spooky song for April Fool's Day. It was about a creature called the Michigan Dogman. According to the lyrics, it stood on two legs, had the head of a dog, and appeared every 10 years in years, ending with the number 7. It was meant to be a joke, but then the station's phone lines lit up. Listeners weren't calling to laugh. They were calling to say they had seen the creature years before the song had ever aired. That unexpected reaction transformed an April Fool's prank into one of America's most enduring cryptid legends. To understand how that happened, and if this creature really exists, we have to start in northern Michigan during the spring of 1987. At the time, Steve Cook was working as a radio personality at WTCM in Traverse City. Like many DJs, he wanted to have a little fun on April Fool's Day, so he wrote and performed a novelty song called The Legend. It told the story of a terrifying creature said to roam Michigan's forests. The Dogman was described as a massive canine that could walk upright like a human. According to the song, it returned every decade during years ending in 7. The story was creepy, the song was catchy, and the entire thing was intended as entertainment. Cook has repeatedly said that was the point. He expected listeners to recognize it as a harmless April Fool's joke. Instead, something strange happened. People started calling the station. Some simply wanted to talk about the song. Others claimed they had experienced something unsettling in Michigan's woods. Several callers insisted they had heard stories about a dog-like creature long before 1987. Some even claimed they had seen something themselves. Whether those reports described the same creature is impossible to verify. Many were secondhand stories. Others relied entirely on memory, but they all had one thing in common. They arrived after a joke that was never supposed to become a legend. That raises some interesting questions. Did Steve Cook accidentally create a monster? Did he simply give an older collection of local stories a name people could finally rally around? Or was there a truth to this supposed prank? Because while the Michigan Dogman became famous after 1987, tales of strange creatures in Michigan's forests did not suddenly appear overnight. According to local folklore, stories about large, upright canines had circulated in parts of the state for decades. Some versions describe encounters deep in remote forests. Others place the creature near abandoned logging camps or isolated back roads. As with most folklore, the details change depending on who is telling the story. One of the earliest stories linked to the legend dates back to 1887. According to Michigan folklore, 2 lumberjacks in Wexford County reported seeing a strange creature with a man's body and a dog's head. Another frequently cited account comes from 1937, when a fisherman named Robert Fortney reportedly encountered a pack of wild dogs near the Muskegon River and said that one of them stood and walked on 2 legs. Neither account can be independently verified today, but both have become enduring parts of the Michigan Dogman legend. There is also no contemporary evidence confirming the story happened exactly as later versions describe. Instead, it survives as part of the broader folklore surrounding the Dogman. The same is true for another popular element of the legend. Many versions claim the creature appears during years ending in the number 7. That unusual pattern became widely known after Steve Cook's song. Whether it existed as established folklore before 1987 remains difficult to prove. Like many legends passed down through word of mouth, the stories evolved over time. Yet the idea proved remarkably durable. People enjoy mysteries with rules. A creature that appears only every 10 years feels less like random fiction and more like an old tradition waiting for the calendar to catch up. And once enough people begin repeating the same story, it can become surprisingly difficult to separate the original folklore from the newer additions. By the late 1980s, the Michigan Dogman had become much more than a novelty song. It had entered local folklore. Books, documentaries, and newspaper articles began exploring the legend. People who had never heard Steve Cook's April Fool's broadcast were now hearing about the creature as though it had always been part of Michigan's history. Whether that history began decades earlier or simply found new life through a radio prank is where the story becomes even more interesting. As interest in the Michigan Dogman grew, so did the stories surrounding it. People described seeing a tall, muscular creature covered in dark fur. Some said it had pointed ears and glowing eyes. Others claimed it walked comfortably on two legs before disappearing back into the trees. No two accounts were exactly alike. That inconsistency is one reason the legend has remained so difficult to evaluate and possibly verify. Unlike documented wildlife, there are no verified photographs, biological samples, or physical evidence confirming the existence of such a creature. Most reports are personal stories, interesting to hear, yet impossible to independently verify. That has not stopped researchers, writers, and folklore enthusiasts from collecting them. Over the years, dozens of books, podcasts, and documentaries have explored the Dogman legend. Some treat it as a genuine cryptid. Others see it as a fascinating example of modern folklore. And perhaps that is where the real story lies. Folklore rarely appears fully formed. It grows over time. Stories are retold, new details are added. Older tales blend with newer ones, until it becomes almost impossible to identify where the legend truly began. The Michigan Dogman seems to have followed exactly that path. Steve Cook's song may have introduced millions of people to the name, but many listeners believed they were hearing something familiar. Whether that familiarity came from older local stories or simply from the power of suggestion is still open to debate. Psychologists have long observed that people naturally connect new information with memories they already have. A mysterious song about a creature in the woods may encourage someone to reinterpret an unexplained experience from years earlier. That does not mean they are lying, nor does it mean the creature exists. But it simply illustrates how folklore can become deeply personal. Interestingly, Steve Cook himself has embraced the legend's place in Michigan culture. Over the years, he has performed the legend many times. What began as a one-day radio joke became something listeners looked forward to hearing. The song developed a following of its own. Today, it is difficult to separate the broadcast from the creature it popularized. The Michigan Dogman has appeared in books, television programs, documentaries, and online discussions. Every few years, especially when another year ending in 7 approaches, interest tends to return. People revisit old stories. They share supposed sightings, and a new generation discovers the legend for the first time. That cycle has helped keep the Dogman alive for nearly 4 decades. Not because new evidence has settled the question, but because the mystery remains unresolved. Skeptics argue there is still no reason to believe an undiscovered canine species is roaming Michigan's forests. They point out that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Despite decades of stories, none has been produced. Believers take a different view. They argue that not every mystery leaves behind physical proof. To them, the consistency of certain themes across decades of reported encounters is worth paying attention to, even if it falls short of scientific evidence. Neither position has ended the debate, and perhaps neither ever will, because the Michigan Dogman has become something larger than the question of whether it exists. It has become part of Michigan's modern folklore, a story shared around campfires, retold during road trips, discussed every Halloween, and revived whenever someone hears Steve Cook's song for the first time. In that sense, the legend succeeded in a way few April Fool's jokes ever have. It escaped the day it was created. Nearly 40 years later, people are still asking the same question those first callers asked back in 1987. What exactly have people been seeing in Michigan's forests? Maybe there is an ordinary explanation behind every report. Maybe decades of storytelling have blended separate experiences into one unforgettable legend. Or perhaps the appeal of the Michigan Dogman has never depended on proving anything at all. Because sometimes the most powerful legends are not the ones we can verify. They are the ones we continue telling. And that is why the Michigan Dogman remains one of America's most enduring cryptid stories.